Hi there, welcome to Chapter 5 of the Misadventures of the Family Fletcher. That's just a fun title to say. This is written by Dana, Alison, Levy, and we are on Chapter 5. Chapter 5 says, in which the Fletchers storm the Pinnacle School. And here we have a note. Ooh. The note says, Eli, I'm really sorry. I know you're mad, but I'm sorry. I can try to help fix it if you tell me how. Really, please don't stay mad, please. Your loving brother, Jax. P.S. I know it was my idea, but it was Frog who did it. You didn't seem mad at him. Uh-oh. That sounds dramatic. September passed in a blur of soccer practices, back-to-back school barbecues, and increasingly difficult homework. And Eli was amazed to realize that he'd been at Pinnacle School for nearly a month already. It was family night, an opportunity for Pinnacle students to showcase their academic efforts to date. At least that was what the flyer had said. Eli wasn't sure what exactly he was supposed to showcase. There had been plenty of work, that was true, but it wasn't like he had stuff to show off. No popsicle buildings or alphabet cutouts like Frog's class, or even drawings of different penguins to scale like Jack's class. Interestingly, the Emperor Penguin was almost the exact same height as Jax himself. Still, it was exciting to have his whole family there at school. Sam was still wearing his soccer clothes, having come straight from practice, but the rest of them were dressed normally, to Eli's relief. Even Papa managed to put on a pair of jeans and a t-shirt that didn't say anything embarrassing. This is where we do outdoor recreation, and over there's where we observe wildlife, Eli told his brothers, pointing to the clearly marked areas. And there's really cool... Frog cut him off. Where's the playground? He asked. There really isn't one. The area there, he pointed over to a fenced-in area, is where you can play tag or something. Frog looked incredulous, and Jack stopped bugging Sam. No playground? Frog said. He sounded like he didn't quite believe it. But you play sports, Jack said. How can you stand it? Thankfully, Dad broke in. Pinnacle School is for students who choose to focus more exclusively on the academic side of the school experience. And Eli gets plenty of time for sports and running around after school. It suits Eli. It doesn't matter if you knuckleheads like it or not. Now please be gracious guest and let's let E-Man show us around. Eli, take it away. They trooped into school, silently taking in the solemn hallways, empty of kids' artwork and motivational posters that had lined the schools of all the other boys' schools. The only art on the walls were gold-framed portraits of famous scholars. Eli heard Papa whisper to Dad, "Instant history, are we supposed to think that these people went here?" Dad answered mildly, "Since we just passed Albert Einstein, I think we can assume that these are just here for inspiration. This is Eli's new school, a place he chose. Let's just admire it." Up ahead, his brothers were having sliding contest down the empty hall, Sam's cleats clacking on the floor. Most of the students and their families were already in classrooms. Eli led everyone to his doorway, which bore a small plaque that read, Ms. Galwin, 4th grade. After opening the door, the family Fletcher slid in as quietly as possible, which wasn't particularly that quiet at all. Eli had been so worried about his family and how they would think of his school that he hadn't actually thought about how the school would react to his family. But as they trooped in, Eli couldn't help seeing them through new eyes. Dad, extremely tall, perpetually rumpled, with his light brown hair in his eyes and his glasses constantly smudged. Then Papa, as tall as Dad, but probably twice as wide, with his jeans and his t-shirt, his shaved head as bald as an egg. And of course all his brothers. Tall and short, pale and brown, they were all clattered in. Miss Galwin stopped talking and stared. Eli nervously scratched the inside of his ear, until Sam smacked his hand down. Sorry we're late, Miss Galwin. My brother had soccer. These are my dad's," he gestured behind him, "and my brother's." Hoping desperately that was enough of an introduction, Eli swooped into his seat. Miss Galwin swallowed and recovered herself. "Ah, Mr. Fletcher and..." She hesitated. In the seats, dozens of grown-ups stared blankly at the Fletchers, who were squeaking chairs and shoving desks out in an attempt to seat themselves. Papa stepped forward, smiling. I'm Jason Fletcher. Please call me Jason. And this is my husband, Tom Anderson. Dad reached out his hand, also smiling. They'd been through this many times, Eli knew. Still, Eli had been Frog's age the last time any of them had started a new school. Since then, they'd all been going one after the other through Grove Elementary, Grove Upper Elementary. Now the Fletchers were a known and mostly loved element. Other than the principal and the third grade teacher, who had shown them around last spring, no one knew them here at the new school. Eli stared at his spotless desk, his face burning. He wasn't embarrassed about his family. It wasn't that. It was just, there were so many of them and so many boys. He knew the questions were going to be coming. Sure enough, as soon as Ms. Galwin had wrapped up her welcome speech and had sounded rather wan and confused by the time the Fletchers had all seated themselves, Eli's classmates gathered around them. Are all those guys your brothers? How old are they? Griffin said. Well, Sam is 12. Jax is the same age as me, almost. Eli stared, but Jax interrupted. I'm actually older. I was 10 in April, and Eli wasn't 10 till August, he said. And Frog just turned 6, Eli finished. He hoped this was the end of it. You guys don't look anything alike, Griffin said. It was a hot room, and Eli could see the sweat beading under Griffin's reddish curls. Duh! Ambrose, a tall boy with a Korean international soccer short, answered before Eli could say anything. Have you, ever heard of adoption? Eli was grateful that Ambrose had jumped in. Yeah, Griffin, we're all adopted, Eli said, edging toward Dad, who was reading the compositions taped to the wall. Eli hoped the questions would stop now, but before he walked away, he heard Micah say in a loud whisper, Why do they have 2 dads? Don't they, have a mom? It was apparently loud enough for Frog to hear, too, and before Eli could answer, Frog spoke up. Of course we had moms. Don't you know how babies are made? It takes a man and a woman, and when the egg meets the... Okay, Frog. Yes, everyone does have a mom and dad. Thanks, Sam said. Luckily, he was standing close enough to cut off Frog before he gave the whole 4th grade class a full lesson in reproductive biology. Eli exhaled a gasp as Sam continued, answering Micah, Griffin, and the others who had been crowded around. We're all adopted as babies. Our dads have been together for ages. They got married 2 years ago. We all went skiing in Colorado for the honeymoon, Frog interrupted. And most of us go to school in Shipton, Sam finished. His voice, as the younger brothers knew, had shifted to slightly menacing. Do you have any other questions? Want to know our birthdays, our weight, our height? Griffin, who obviously didn't have older brothers, ignored the menace. Yeah. Why did 2 guys... Ambrose cut him off. Come on, Griffin. Let's show your parents our model of the solar system for our Rewind. Ambrose cut him off. Come on, Griffin. Let's show your parents our model solar panel for the solar panel bike. He looked slightly embarrassed as he dragged Griffin back towards their parents, who were chit-chatting with a group near the whiteboard. Relieved that the worst was over, Eli joined Dad and Papa by the essays. This is really fascinating, Bud. Did you get to choose the topic yourself? Dad asked. Eli nodded, a glow of pride starting to replace the nervous feeling. We're allowed to choose anything at all for our weekly research essays, as long as it's academic in nature. And if we're really interested, we can continue the same topic for up to 3 weeks. Then we have to choose something new. So I spent 2 weeks on that one. Why bridges stay up. It was fascinating. Dad and Papa exchanged smiles, and Eli smiled too. Maybe the night was going to go well after all. But just as he thought that, a horrible crash filled the room, followed by immediate silence. Silence that was only broken by the voice of Frog. Sorry, I'm really, really sorry. Eli turned around. On the floor was Griffin and Ambrose's solar panel. A month of work lay in pieces next to Frog, also who was on the floor, who had obviously decided to try the sliding game again, but this time in the classroom. Eli closed his eyes. Hopefully, family night was only once a year, because 365 days wouldn't be long enough before they had to do this again. Ooh, that's tough. See you next time for Chapter 6.